And we're going to have a discussion because this wallet, it's a never-ending story. You can take seats, gentlemen. This is all fine. You don't fall off from there.
Don't?
It is well designed in Estonia, you know. Yeah, have fun. But to kick it off, Madis has like only positive views on everything, of course. But like to open it, 3 things you say that are really, really positive. You have high hopes for the wallet. 3 things you kind of are doubtful about. 6 sentences max, each one quickly.
Start with me? All right.
They picked you up, I don't know why.
Very good. Well, I mean, I said it before, I would have loved to have this like 20 years ago. This would have been really good at that time. I mean, the positive things. It's good to address the need of identification, authentication, I think, across borders. That's an important topic, we think. But that is about identity matching and semantics and so on, I would think, more than maybe a specific technology or something like that. But it's an important issue to track. And also, I think it's important, and I mentioned it earlier, all these attestations, to have a way of, presenting our credentials in a way like driving license. So it could be diplomas, high school diplomas, and so on. So that, I mean, exciting to see how that goes and how this infrastructure can be used for all of that. Obviously, the authentication part, the online authentication and signature, I mean, in the Nordic and the Baltics, that's something that is currently working today. So for the countries, like the Nordic countries, this is not the most urgent needs to come up with another solution for that. I mean, I don't think that's the priority. Obviously, the cross-border context, again, it's more related to the semantics and identity matching, but we have solutions. I mean, today we have, out in the expo, we have services that are focusing on cross-border services, basically taking local services and, a value proposition of sharing that between different countries. So the market is kind of solving that in a way, and signatures as well. So we have that going on. So, but you mentioned the business model. I mean, that has been one of the main questions for us and for a lot of people, I think. What's the business? Who's going to pay for all this? The infrastructure and everything. So that's the kind of dark horse for many, especially in the countries that have a functional infrastructure and well-defined. So, yeah, I would say that's the one we're most interesting to see and debate and see where that goes.
Yep. Thank you. Maarten.
I'll try to do my six sentences as well.
Sorry.
No,
Haraldur has a lot of comments.
Oh, that's great. No, so I think to start with the positive point, right? So it's really great that this is a mobile wallet, right? I don't think in Estonia I have to convince a lot of people, but look, my kids in the Netherlands, right? They have their phone and they stick their cards in there. Yeah, because they still have to have their cards, right? So it's the mobile phone's identity, great. I think the fact that it's user-centric, right? Eye control, great. And the second or the third great thing about it is that we really need this international standardization of trust level. So if someone claims I have my PhD, who claims that? Is that a university or is it just my LinkedIn and I claim I have it myself? So great, right? I think there's a definite role for the European Union there. No debates here, and this IDAS 2, right? IDAS 1 had lots of flaws, right? So let's make a new version. What's not so great is, and I'm kind of echoing my neighbor a little bit, but in my words, is one size fits all doesn't work here, right? I think we are in different situations in different parts of Europe, and this feels sometimes a little bit more too much like, the limits don't apply to anyone. And that, and as an example of this, as a second point, is the privacy. And so we work for lots of different parts of Europe, right? We all have the same GDPR. The perspective of privacy is very different, as you noticed in Belgium. Yeah, so a personal number is something very different in where I live and here in the Baltics or in the Nordics. And that's not handled very well, right? And the disadvantage of applying that to whole of Europe is that basically you have to adhere to the most privacy-sensitive country. Otherwise, we'll reject it, but that means that the others will lose a lot of functionality, right? You might end up with an unusable or insecure system because you listen to that one most privately paranoid person in the whole of Europe. Last one, also echoing a little bit, Harold. I did a lot of research on this in the past, right? So business models are so crucial. If you don't have a working business model, you don't have a sustainable innovation. You have a nice POC, you have a nice pilot, and it dies. And it's somewhat disappointing for me that in all those pilots and all those efforts, right, this is 4 or 5 years old, there's still no clear concept of how we're going to make this sustainable by having a working model. Because we all have to pay our salaries. We all want to go to the market. We have to our mortgage, right? People are needed to build these systems, to maintain these systems, to collect those attributes. They need salaries, and it's very unclear how this is going to work. And I don't think, So I have opinions on what that doesn't fit in my 6 sentences, which I now surpassed a lot. But that should be something that should be addressed head on, rather than being pushed back and back and back.
But Madis, you personally as well, still like 6 things, because you can kind of leave the official thing behind. Nobody's watching. Like, just say what you think.
Personally, I rarely carry my wallet with me anymore. I mean, physical ID card, driving license. Right now, I don't know where it is. Right, it's like in one of those 3 places at home, but like I would have to find out, right? Because everything is mobile already. So I like as a positive thing is this overall trend of going mobile, right? Regardless of kind of the wallet, member states were doing wallets anyway, right? So that's something that I see positive. If we can get those kind of credentials part of like mobile digitized, that's a positive kind of trend I can see. Like overall in the process, this continuous discussion with that the Commission is kind of pulling together that the relevant experts who are working on these topics in any case to have this more shared cross-border environment or kind of culture that we can achieve alignment as much as possible. Of course, there's the regulatory context, but even beyond that, there's all these initiatives that are not necessarily part of the regulation, but it's kind of pushing not just the IDAS context, but also the other DGs to work towards digitization as well. On the negatives or kind of concerns, let's say, it's the sheer complexity of this particular initiative, which is not necessarily because the project could be simple, could be more complex. It's the complexity of the kind of the European cultures that kind of a little bit create this situation that we have. It's not one size fits all necessarily, but rather like several types of wallets within one umbrella kind of underway, because if we could not regulate everybody to use identity the same way. So regardless of what the specifications will be, there will be different expectations, different usages of these, and how to manage this complexity within this project for, like you said, interoperability is the biggest challenge that we have, that we try to kind of align everybody as much as possible.
So, and keep the questions running, and from the Madis session already we have a couple of questions that well fit into our discussion, and I think that we haven't touched it at all in our previous talks, and then I'm glad to have Netherlands in the panel here, because the thing that the wallet tries to bring into the table clearly is a kind of equal treatment of physical and legal persons, like really to have the identity wallet for companies and persons. And it's kind of the same regulation, same theme, same app, let's say. And one could only imagine where would be this app that is representing SKID solutions. I have no clue where to put it. But I would have it, I understand, in a couple of years. And Netherlands has had the ID scheme for companies for years and years now. So probably for you, it's not such a big shift. But I think for others, it's kind of big shift that identity of a company will be a separate thing. So maybe a little bit now, whoever has an opinion on like how this legal version's identity is introduced through this framework.
Let's sketch a little bit how that works in the Netherlands and what's good and bad about it. So we have that, right? So I, as a company owner, director, register my company, and then I know I represent it, and one of my colleagues represents it, and that's all pretty. That kind of works. It took a very long time to get there, right? So I made a lot of money as a consultant in that area, but yeah, there was little benefit to society as a whole, just to my salary. But yeah, but in the end it worked, and it worked. Why? Because everything only works if service providers use it. So when the tax department finally said, "Sure, we require this," suddenly this became a big success. Same will be with the wallet, right? We can all debate here, It's in the end, it's the relying parties.
At the end, it's tax department.
Yeah, and that's basically tax department or banks. Yeah, because both are unavoidable in life. And so what's good about it is it's very clear that I'm me and I represent this company. What's less good about it is if you want to go into the fine-grained authorizations, which colleague of mine can do what with what institute, then it gets very messy. And in my view, way more messy than when you talk about the personal identity. Personal identity, you have someone, it's a parent, it's someone that's, a curatele was the English word, right? So someone that cannot decide for themselves. But in companies, that's so way more complex. So if you're worried about complexity, I'd kick the company part out. That will save you like 80% of the complexity. Yeah. So and I'm not saying there's not a need, but that's where I would be. I would take a more incremental approach. And let's solve it for persons first.
But we are in trouble already in this 20% of personal things.
Yeah.
When we discuss it, then you say that 80% we even don't discuss at the moment.
Yeah, and it's not, of course, a physical wallet, right? So the whole user-centric, and it has to be on my mobile phone. That doesn't apply to a company, in my view. That's a parallel that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Haraldur, have you any?
Well, like in Iceland, we have this business registry, and that's the tax authorities are taking care of that, and there it's about semantics and trust. How do you do that cross-border? And we actually have there's an organization. Well, there's a umbrella of business registries around Europe, so they have an organization, so they meet up and talk business registry stuff. And they could agree on a semantic. The semantics and so on, they are really important. Obviously, to have a piece of technology or a standard wallet, a carrier to do it, it's helpful and could be helpful in a way. But so that's one of the things that we are exploring. Can we use it for that? But as you say, it gets in the more detail you look into, the more complex it becomes. Mm-hmm. So it's a challenge. So,
but Maarten, if you've done it in Netherlands, is it something that you could export to other countries? You would say, we have a model. Take this. Is it exportable?
I think one of the new proposals actually tries to do this to some extent, the WeBuild proposal, but at least some of the ideas. But I don't think so, because just as an anecdote to make this a little bit less academic, a big problem in the Netherlands we had with churches. So churches were not companies, so they were not in the company registry. But they had to get one of those identities anyway, because they do have to apply for a permit, I don't know, to kind of fix their roof or something. And they couldn't do that, right? So they were kind of you had an inclusion problem. Mm-hmm. But then to churches who suddenly couldn't interact with the government anymore. So this is just and you solve that, right? So all of these things you solve, it just takes 1 or 2 years. But if you do this on a European scale, I don't know what's the equivalent of a church is in Bulgaria, right? So that there will be organizations there that are not in that registry, and then if you make it very, very binary, very digital, then suddenly those organizations, fall through the cracks, and then you have a problem.
We are addressing it in the large-scale pilot. So in a sense, it's good. It's pinpointing and putting focus on the subject. So that's positive. So and it's good, and it's being the countries are discussing this. How can we do this, and what can we do with the semantics and everything? So it puts a focus on it. So in that sense, it's positive.
Madis, how much focus does a legal identity get in Commission at the moment?
So one of the pilots is working currently on. They've done a lot of exploration with companies to see how can these wallets be useful, and they've found out like really cool possible use cases, like in the area of supply chain kind of data exchange, where like two companies are able to kind of identify their endpoints. Whether they have the wallet, in a sense, doesn't necessarily need to be a mobile app, in that context, but it's more of a kind of part of the organization's IT infrastructure. So there are some explorations going on, and we're really kind of excited to see what those explorations bring. The reason why the kind of, let's say, the subjects of these wallets are also legal persons and natural persons representing other natural persons is interestingly how different member states regard, like, I don't know, access management. So in what I've learned, we've done quite a lot of research on this, that in some countries, to access like a tax authority, for instance, you already kind of bring your permissions. It's not necessarily stored by the tax authority or the business register, but kind of externally stored. Whereas in others, like you log in as yourself, and then you kind of, hey, I'm representing my child, I'm representing this company or that company. It's kind of the more normal way of developing services. So because of these differences, the concept of legal person identity is used where kind of like the model of this authenticate that we saw previously, that you use one method and then it's kind of transformed, added some information to that, and then passed on. So that's part of the background for this discussion, as I understand. And but for the use cases, well, also it will be defined a little bit by the member states. Kind of, okay, this is bureaucratic now, but EID schemes. So the governments define to whom, under what conditions they issue identities, and there possibly will be a little bit differences, just like to which age you issue identity. Like, is it 18 or is it, I don't know, 16? Definitely you have differences in different member states. So that's not harmonized really. So we'll be excited to see how this experience kind of starts developing.
But is there like a common thread of thoughts now? Like, this is the way how we in Commission see that this thing will be implemented in the future? Or not yet? This is fine to say not yet.
So it
maybe not publicly, but still, like in this small audience here.
Personally, what I find always kind of like a driving force is the definition of the use case. So and then you kind of fit to that. Is there a common use case across Europe, across borders? I haven't seen so much like this for legal persons necessarily, because it's for tax authorities, for business registers, for company to company. Possibly there are differences, and that's not something we are necessarily harmonizing or regulating. That's not in the scope, like the identity management in the service level.
Okay, we have some. Well, rather hostile against data's questions still. But let's go through some of them from the audience. So, and in a large picture, I think all of you can answer. If we would consider that the EIDAS 1 kind of failed in a grand scale, it didn't deliver the promises, what is the reason of hope for the EIDAS 2?
First of all, I'll try to take this one, because I was involved in EIDAS 1 as well. Yeah, so you're still the only person I ever met that actually used it without testing, right? So still compliments you. I always say, I know no one, and then last year you told me, no, I use it. So here in the, so me as a company owner, I've never used it. As a person, I've never used it. I don't know who, and maybe someone in the audience has used it as well, except for testing. And we had some meetings in the Netherlands as well, where I got some of the people from the ministries, and they also acknowledged, right? So like 95% of the traffic is testing traffic that goes over all the nodes.
We're talking about this cross-border ADAS node thing now.
Yeah, for the EID part, right? So the signing is completely different. Yeah, so that's been a failure, right? So I think it's great that so I think we should move forward, and of course the momentum, right? So for IDAS 2 and mobile wallets is way bigger, right? So you actually read about this in places which are not super nerdy. Well, IDAS 1 was like this super nerdy thing for a very, very small community. So the momentum we're getting, the amount of attention, I think also the large-scale pilots help there. Yeah, so it's way bigger. So
you mean the ADAS 1 was too small to succeed?
Yeah, but it had the same risk as for 2 is that there were too many compromises in there.
Okay.
And if you want to have a solution, if you say one size fits all, and then you make it that it fits for everyone, then it fits for no one, right? And that's the same risk that we have now. But let's hope that we do better this time.
Haraldur, your take on what is the reason of hope?
What's the reason of hope with the ADAS 2?
For the ADAS 2. Like if the one didn't work out, was small enough to be in a nerd's room, why the large scale thing with all the nerds in the room still would work?
I'm not sure that I agree that one didn't work. I mean, because we're using signatures, for example. I mean, we put the focus on the authentication part. Cross-border signatures. Yeah, I'm signing all the way. I have qualified signatures, and I bombard different people with different countries with that, my signed document, and I just tell them it's the qualified signature. You need to accept it. So we have an infrastructure for that, and that is working.
That's the signing part. But did you ever log into another service?
So that is working. Yeah. And the main reason for that is working, and the other one is not working. That is because we don't need the unique identifiers in those signature pods. I mean, we could set up those nodes where you can use the local schemes and everything, and that's fine. But like in Iceland, we're heavily using social security number for everything, like a unique identifier. So, we could accept the smart ID and services in Iceland, and Kalev would, knock, 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 hi, I'm Kalev, and, you show your EID and everything, and it works. And we say, the tax authority says, hello, Kalev, yeah, it's good to see you, and that's it. And we need to know your social security number in Iceland. And it stops.
And then it stops.
Then it stops. So, that's the main thing. So if with the wallet, we get the wallet, and if we don't address the unique identifier thing, it will be the same results, just a different application. Instead of using Smart ID, I use the EID wallet, and I present my EID wallet, like, hey, I'm Haraldur Bjarnason, blah, 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 blah. Yes, very good, good to see you, but I need your Icelandic social security number. And then it stops. So, the main thing is not, in my point, another EID solution. It's identity matching and the unique identifier and all of that. So that's really, really important. And obviously that is part of the legislation. So that, for me, that is the important part, not the technical implementation of a wallet solution in itself. It's solving identity matching. I mean, with that, you get better use of cross-border authentication indication.
Yeah, if I continue from this, I mean, I was going to say the same thing. Identity matching is something that was not part of the previous regulation. Now it's been introduced. I mean, some member states, a handful, have voluntarily kind of implemented these. So essentially, to access your governmental account to your, ID code, right? You can. The way it works right now, let's say in Estonia, is that you have the account number basically in part of your identity. So you kind of you prove that that's part of the account. However, when you have a person from another country, they necessarily don't have your other country kind of account number part of their identity. However, this can be kind of linked, so that the account refers to many authentic. So you can essentially use many authenticators to access that account, right? So some countries have done that, and it's been working well between Netherlands and Belgium, for instance. And like as a practical example, something during the when diplomats in Brussels got a shot for the COVID vaccine, for instance, and they needed to get the certificate afterwards from the Belgian government. They were able to use their notified EID means to log into that e-health system without having to get on board to a Belgian system. So it was actually something that I find it was used quite a lot and worked well. Now that's something that is part of the regulation. That's part of what we are doing. Another element I would say is just the sentiment we get in these expert groups where there's a lot of excitement, a lot of member states and their experts and businesses would be doing these kind of wallets regardless of EU action, and that gives kind of a good signal, definitely. And then the third element I would also mention is that beyond the EID part, as you mentioned, Haraldur, is the trust services kind of mutual recognition. I was talking before at the booths with some companies that it's kind of good to see that now, after a few years, after IDAS1, we're seeing this trust service providers being more in one country. That SK is expanding to other countries, but also we're seeing that in other parts of Europe. So that's definitely something that kind of you have the legal foundation to achieve that, right? So that I can see continuing definitely, like with the remote QCD service or such as.
So definitely some hope in your guys exists, and some reasons why it should be a success. There's another maybe not so friendly question, and it's all about the imagination. Pay attention to the wording. Like, could you imagine more cost-ineffective way to provide cross-border digital authentication and signing than the way how the wallet is currently being organized? Like, just one example of more inefficient thing would be enough, I understand, for the person who asked the question.
I would say if it's 27 times 27 bilateral discussions, that would be way more.
Exactly. No regulation, only bilateral agreements.
So I'd said, so to be sure, I might be a little bit skeptical on some of the details, but overall, I think there is, so if we want to move forward as Europe, we have to make a step.
Yeah,
I'm just saying maybe the step is a little bit too big.
And we give it up to the panel. I think that was a hard task. Yeah, an applause to the panel like this. Wasn't an easy task to come up like so quickly with more inefficient. Yeah, please, Madis.
Well, I wouldn't answer that way, but I would say that the question is somehow like limiting because it's saying just focusing on the EID part, right? But the wallet is not necessarily doing. If the wallet would be just a simple, an authentication method, then with I don't know, just a pseudonym, for instance, right? Like a FIDO token. Then obviously that would be good to achieve, but that's not the point. That's not what the kind of what I started with from the why is also these proximity use cases. So it's kind of a platform for more than that. Obviously, if you look at it just from the authentication part, then it's a difficult question to answer. But you have these additional ones. So hopefully that reduces the unit cost.
Good. We probably have read too much of that specification thing and legal thing, but there is an honest question about the pricing, and I think that it would be nice of us to go through what is stated about the pricing, what is priced, what cannot be priced, because that's only about the authentication here, but rather like in general, if you look at the wallet, what can be priced for whom, just that not everybody is on the same page, I think, here. What is the business model? Because Haraldur said that business model seems to be missing. We definitely know where the business isn't, meaning that we have a lot of free stuff there. So what is free and how it is free?
So I can add like some framework, right?
Yeah.
There are different pricing models right now. One of them is that you kind of pay per transaction. That's something that kind of the precondition for that to happen is that the identity provider knows
Somebody knows who transacted.
Okay, sorry. Indeed, somebody knows. What's the volume with which relying party? Now, this is something that was particularly discussed in the kind of the regulation level. So it's something. I mean, it's just a framework for me, right, and for everyone else. That this type of knowledge shouldn't be there. So it's one of the kind of by design elements. Now there are. It's not predefined how the revenue models should be. However, there possibly are different ways, and that's. But I wouldn't speculate on that because that's really for each wallet provider and each for EID scheme to.
But as a relying party, like because I think that the question is rather coming from the point of like, if I'm a relying party, I need to accept the wallet. Shall I pay something? What is the price list? Where is the specification? How do I integrate those?
And you need to accept the wallet
by
regulation. It's not.
It's
not like you have a business choice in like no, I'm not going to accept it. It's mandating, services using
some
relying party.
Yeah, there. I mean, you have the registration of relying parties. That's one part. You have then. Possibly, I don't know, revocation information. You have credential issuance. So there are different kind of, let's say, transaction flows that are going beyond the request response from relying party to wallet, kind of in the ecosystem. So, but how exactly it can be monetized, just like with current EIDs, there are different models, and it wasn't part of the deal to harmonize that, to leave for flexibility.
But how can you say, okay, we have a European interoperable solution, but in one country it might be priced like this, the other one might be priced like that. I, as a at the station provider, provide something to another country, so I'm not allowed to charge it here, but so I go bankrupt. So so you cannot. It's for me a little bit too easy answer. So so we have to. I'm understanding that in the details you might say, okay, there's some but this is an example where I think you cannot just say, I'm sticking my hand in the sand and let's hope that it goes away.
It's definitely one of those topics that will be kind of discussed. Best practices, guidances by the member states will be in charge of this wallet. So
can the thing that Maarten explained happen? Like me as a relying party who is obliged to accept, then I have to figure out per transaction, like, is that something I need to pay for to this guy? Is that something that I definitely cannot pay anywhere? Is that already prepaid in that country? Like, do I do that? Is it possible that Maarten explained that?
I guess it can be possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to elaborate. I mean, because these are the types of questions we get, and I mean, traditionally it's been based like the authentication part on like volumes. So the relying party that is just paying and on usage. And if, as you say, by design that's not possible, then you have to look at other means. So it might be just for connecting something, but then you might have the decision. I mean, you have, for example, let's take the bank that are mandated to use this. You have a really small banks with a volume of 100, and another bank with a volume of like 1,000 or 100 million times the volume, and they still pay the same. And if you're not, you can't use volume, they have to pay the same. So you're increasing the cost of the small saving banks that are competing with the bigger banks. So how is that? What does the competition authority say about that? I mean, so we need to think about all of this. Across that we're being mandating a solution that probably is going to compete with Smart ID, for example. I don't know if what's your view on that? If it's, how does the competition authority look at that the EU and the government is entering a market with or mandating a solution?
I mean, the exact model, it's undefined. So there can be different models, implemented, and then it's based on that model, the discussion. So it's kind of like speculation a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like one of those topics that becomes more, I don't know, urgent or prevalent once we approach that point. Right now, we're really focusing on these specifications to at least have, interoperability ensured. That's what we're working on, and what we need to at least kind of minimally do from the regulation. And again, it's a little bit of a, it's part of the kind of the regulatory system that once you have a regulation fixed, then there might be it might be needed to change on some points, but then you need to do it by change the regulation. So regardless of kind of what I say or what we do in the technical level, it's some of the choices are already kind of made, and the framework for us to work in.
So the choices are made, so we cannot change them in a regulation as well.
No, not necessarily that, but these are definitely kind of important considerations that are taken into account once we get more to the operational phase. Right now, it's quite early development and something to consider then. And I'm sure there is a really good kind of collaboration with member states in the expert groups and something I'm sure we'll be able to figure out.
I will a little bit expand the question in the question and answers. Would this kind of one thing for the whole Europe work? Here's the proposal, like one hub where all the wallets and the EIDs are then connected, and this one hub is providing service to all the relying parties across Europe. Would that be a thing? Maybe then all member states use also the same one wallet, and therefore everything is standardized through this one technology.
It is. Can you imagine something even worse than what we're talking about now? That's this is like a nightmare scenario, I guess. Yeah.
The proposal is that would speed up popularity of the wallet.
Yeah.
You have
anybody thinking about that somewhere seriously?
You have one of the main reasons. I mean, indeed, you can think of. So sometimes when we talk of wallets, we kind of talk of a kind of technology component, but really we're talking about EID schemes under which you have a kind of like a technology operational aspect for the the technical components, and then you have these processes about identity proofing and issuance of identity and I don't know, registration of identity and all that. So for each of the components, there is a possibility, obviously, to kind of have a consolidation. Like different member states reusing the same components, same service providers, but it's ultimately up to them. But the kind of fundamental principle is that the identities, the governmental identities, are still determined. How
the member states still have a role, and then there's no centralization in that sense.
In the sense of issuing identity, no, but
providing relying parties service from.
You mean like identity aggregation or kind of authentication aggregation?
Yeah, like as a relying party, I have one integration with some kind of a centrally provided hub. Don't want to interact with all different wallets.
That's not excluded, yeah.
Okay, good. We have a couple of questions more. Running out of time, but maybe we can take them after the break. But now, final question to the panel. And Madis, you cannot reveal before Maarten and Haraldur answer where the implementing acts are, but as we know, like by the regulation, roughly in 2 years, we should have wallets in all the member states. Like from the initial proposal, like everybody starts issuing in 2 years, the wallets. Haraldur, you don't watch there, don't look if the implementing acts are actually coming. Just your proposal, like, do you think that in 2 years? Yep. Your country, Netherlands, Iceland, are starting issuing the wallets to their citizens? Yes, no?
I think some countries will. Most countries.
Netherlands?
Will. Netherlands might be one of the first, yeah.
Good. Iceland?
Yeah, well, if we implement the legislation, hasn't been implemented yet. First we need that, and then obviously we'll fulfill all the requirements. We already have a wallet, I can show it to you.
So a couple of years,
just to be a little bit nuanced, it's not about issuing them. It's actually people using them and installing them, right? That's the success. Not like it exists. And
the regulation didn't say anything about using.
Okay.
They just said that they start issuing stuff.
Okay, that's easy. Right? We can do
We
that.
can build
3 weeks
and
from
do,
now.
but have it. I mean, because we need to have it audited and everything. That's a process. So I don't
2
know.
years, not good enough. Good enough.
Not for auditing.
Okay.
I mean, if it's going to be audited, then the auditors, they need to educate themselves, and then they need to go to Netherlands and Estonia and all these different countries and audit. That probably
I think there will be at least 3 or 4 more SK annual events where we can discuss this.
We'll see. But hopefully.
But Madis, you actually know where we are with this process from the legal point of view. How far are we from the fact that Commission can actually declare that, yep, now you have an obligation in 2 years, please be ready?
Yeah, where we are, we have about, I've lost, I don't know the number anymore exactly, but the first 2 main implementing act mandates that kind of triggered the deadline were quite close. Perhaps this month still we can do the like kind of a positive adoption, possibly. Then there's a handful that are also essential for the wallet. There are they're about to be published. They're kind of quite mature to be published already. And then we have already started to work on all the kind of the addition. Okay, this is not necessarily for the wallet, but I mean all the trust services section. We have already started to work on as well. And then in parallel, like the kind of the cooperation group to start discussing the Commission has already started to engage with standardization bodies so that we have a kind of like a roadmap idea of which gaps are we filling with hopefully or potentially which standards. So this is something that we'll be publishing quite soon as well. There are some technical specifications that will be kind of more, let's say, Commission developed.
So if you would summarize.
Sorry?
If you would summarize.
When
are you ready as a Commission to say that, okay, now the clock starts, 24 months comes after this clock has been started? When this clock is started?
The clock starts when the implementing acts are adopted.
So this month?
Probably in November 24 then, yeah?
26, I mean.
No, it's the start.
November, December, maybe there is a small change between the kind of the agreement and then the entry into force or the adoption. I think there is normally like a 20-day, like some translations. So within this year.
But thank you for this lovely promise, for you giving us 3-4 annual conferences before we get there, and for Madis to say that, well, actually in 2 years, that's over. But give it up to the panel. Thank you. And do we have wonderful pictures of our panel? Let's see what the artist has done with us. Oh, yeah. Madis has been bombarded with the identity wallet.
Very good.
And Maarten has been drawn up nicely, and the Estonian design is under you.
Yeah.
Wonderful.